Well, everyone, we made it past another crappy year. And this time, for movies, while we did get a lot of crap, we actually got a lot of good movies this year. Now, unlike last year, I won't be talking about every single movie that I saw this year, considering I saw 49 movies this year. And you know what? I had to record this a bunch. So I'm just gonna do top 5 best, top 5 worst of this year. No, I will not be hearing anyone out on this. Tom and Jerry 2021 sucks. That's all there is to it. There's nothing redeeming about this movie at all, outside of the animation. But even so, the animation looks weird, especially since it's a live action animation and human hybrid type movie. Which, speaking of which, can we not? Like, I'm so tired of it. The Sonic movie did it. Hop did it. The Smurfs did it. I forgot what other movies did it, but like, we obviously don't care about Chloe Grace Moretz on a hotel fighting against Michael Pena. We don't care. Just give us Tom and Jerry, like, beating the shit out of each other. That's what we want to see out of Tom and Jerry. And it's directed by Tim Story. And it's kind of funny considering there's no story in this. With all that said, I'd be surprised if Tom and Jerry even got a sequel at all, considering almost no one liked this movie. Anyway, let's move on. It sucks. It doesn't need to be a trilogy. Fuck you, Netflix.
I said fuck you! And your eyebrows! Wipe down this!
Earwig and the Witch is the latest Studio Ghibli movie, and it sucks. You already know this. I'm pretty sure everyone already knows this. But yeah, it sucks. The animation is so static and lifeless considering everything else in Studio Ghibli's catalog. Like, Studio Ghibli is famous for having like the most beautiful animation, while you just got Earwig and the Witch with the most static models, and I don't know. It's just ugly, honestly. The main protagonist is awful. She's extremely manipulative towards everyone, and she doesn't change throughout the movie at all. All she does is just boss everyone around, constantly whining and demanding for everything. She doesn't even change at all. Good example of change is Chihiro from Spirited Away, which is another Studio Ghibli movie. And there's a reason why she works. At the beginning, did anyone really like Chihiro? No. Everyone likes Chihiro when she develops. And I wish they could have did that with Erica, because like, okay, I'm just gonna call her Earwig. They don't really do it with Earwig for a majority of the movie. She's just bossy, and eventually, at the end of the movie, she takes control of the family. And speaking of which, her adoptive family sucks. The only one that's actually interesting is barely in the movie at all. It's the husband of the blue-haired witch. Yeah, he's interesting, but he's not in the movie. And they don't feel like a family. They feel like the most abusive family. And then the ending. Oh my god, the ending sucks. I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. This movie sucks. I don't even want to talk about this movie, so I'll just play this clip.
I have seen everything that has ever happened, ever will happen, ever could happen, and yet, what the hell is this?
Now that we're done with all the crap that was put out this year, it's time we talk about the good movies of this year. Starting with... Alright, so you know that meme where it has a Doomer image where it's like that one girl that's like, OMG, she's literally me. That's me with this movie. Encanto is the most recent Disney animated flick, and honestly, it is one of their better animated projects of this year. Not to say Luca was bad. Well, Raya was shit, but like, Luca was good. Unlike Raya, Encanto actually decides to develop its characters. The Madrigal family feels fleshed out. They actually feel like real human beings rather than, I don't know, action figures, I guess. Everyone has their own distinct personality, and my favorites have to be the buff girl, the girl who can hear anything, and Camillo, the shapeshifter. One thing that I have to say about this movie that I really like to give props to, it's the fact that at the end Mirabelle doesn't really get any power. She stays powerless even at the end of the movie. Anyway, Encanto is good. Go see it on Disney Plus if you haven't. I'm gonna be honest, I had no interest for this movie. I didn't even know Lin-Manuel Miranda was a part of it, but after watching it, it kind of became my favorite movie over time. Andrew Garfield really gives his A game in this, and according to my sister, he didn't even know how to sing. Without Andrew Garfield, I don't think Tick Tick Boom would be nearly as good as it was. Or maybe it would be. Who knows? But I really hope Andrew Garfield gets an Oscar for this, or at least a nomination. He probably won't, but it's nice to be hopeful. Anyway, I don't really want to say too much about this movie because I rather be more vague about it so that way more people can see Tick Tick Boom. Because I really like this movie and I feel like Andrew Garfield is becoming one of my favorite actors of this generation. Now let's move on to number 3 on this list. Back in, I think, 2019, this film used to be called Connected. At first, I was thrown off the film because of the premise of it. The premise is basically technology overrunning humanity, and a small group of survivors have to take back humanity. Honestly, I'm getting tired of this premise, but I feel like the Mitchells versus the Machines does a really good job with this plot. What I mean is that it really isn't the main focus of this movie. As you can tell by the trailer, the movie is about the Mitchells family itself, with Katie and her dad being at the forefront of the film. That doesn't mean the mom and the brother don't get any development. They still do, but the film is mainly about Katie and her dad getting along with each other. And the film does a really good job at establishing the relationship between those two and even developing it towards the end of the movie, where it has a satisfying conclusion. Outside of that, of course, the animation is gorgeous. I mean, come on. I really love the style of the Mitchells versus the Machines. It's honestly one of the most unique animated movies since Spider-Verse, and I wish more 3D animated movies looked like this. One complaint that I have about this movie, and don't worry, it's just a minor complaint, it's just that Aaron Mitchell is voiced by Michael Rianda, and I don't know. Aaron Mitchell is supposed to be this little kid, and the fact that he's voiced by this grown man really puts me off, and it's really distracting, honestly. But enough about Mitchells, let's go on to the next movie. As someone who hasn't read the original book or seen the David Lynch movie, don't worry, I'll be getting around to that. Dune Part 1 was a surprise to me. And yes, I did say Part 1. That's mainly because Dune 2021 was adapting a book, a really long book. So they had to split it up in 2 parts. And honestly, that's where my main complaint with this movie is. It's only part 1, and that's why there's problems with this movie. There's barely anything we can go off of except wait for the sequel. But enough with my whining. Dune 2021 was actually really good. A lot of the CG, action, special effects, and acting are probably the best part about this movie, along with the score, even though it can be annoying. I'm glad I got to see Dune, and I'm glad a lot of people are happy with this adaptation of Dune. I just hope Percy Jackson fans can receive the same treatment as Dune. With all that said, I want to move on to my honorable mentions of this year. While Part 1 wasn't as good, and Part 2 was a step in the right direction, Fear Street Part 3 is definitely my favorite of the trilogy. The twist with Sarah Fear and who the main villain actually is was honestly the best part of it. And the conclusion with 1994's story actually wrapped up well in a solid way. And apparently the director has ideas for a new trilogy, which I'm excited for. I just hope it'll be better than Fear Street Part 1 and 2. But I think we need more movies like Fear Street and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. A gateway into horror, so that way we can get more fans of the horror genre. I don't know, I just like seeing films like these and seeing people I know get into horror because of these movies. Demon Slayer the movie, Mugen Train, is an adaptation of volumes 7 and 8 of the manga. And while the animation doesn't look too different from the show, I like what they did with this movie. That's really all I have to say about this movie. It's a good adaptation of the Demon Slayer manga, and I highly recommend that you watch it. I can't believe it's been 6 years since we saw Spider-Man enter the MCU. Spider-Man No Way Home is officially my favorite in the trilogy. While I liked both Homecoming and Far From Home, No Way Home really does a lot of justice for Peter Parker's character. But my problem with this movie still stands. The first act is a little bit too fast for me, and we barely have any breathing room. What I mean is that, I don't know, the pacing is a little bit rough, honestly. Another problem that I have with this movie is the spell that they used. Why can't Doctor Strange and Peter Parker make a list of people who can remember he's still Spider-Man? And while I like the ending of No Way Home, I do gotta admit Doctor Strange was kind of an idiot. Why not use the same spell again? It should work this time, considering you guys know what happens. Also, I wish Tobey Maguire and the Green Goblin talked to each other, along with Andrew Garfield and the Lizard. Kinda feels like a missed opportunity, but I do like the interactions with Tobey and Doc Ock, Andrew and Electro. Speaking of Tobey and Andrew, I really liked how this movie pays respect to them. John Watts knows that Tobey and Andrew mean a lot to people, and it shows in this movie. And I really liked the interactions between Tom, Tobey, and Andrew. Also, everybody knows this already, but Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin was honestly a highlight of this movie. I'm honestly glad they didn't give him that ugly mask from the comics and just gave him some goggles, because Willem Dafoe's facial acting is one of the best parts about him. And Willem Dafoe just chews every scene he's in, even when he's mentioning some Reddit meme. Overall, Spider-Man No Way Home is a step in the right direction for MCU Spider-Man, and I'm excited to see what they'll do with him in the next trilogy. Now, it's time we stop delaying, as we're finally here with my number one film of 2021, and that film is... I did not expect to buy this film for $20 or see it in the first place. But I did, and The Green Knight is honestly one of my favorite movies of this year. The Green Knight was directed by David Lowery and is another film by A24. It's based on Arthurian legend, as it has King Arthur's nephew, Sir Gawain, embark on a daring quest to kill the Green Knight. The cinematography is one of the best parts about this movie. Everything looks beautiful. Nothing is too dark or brightly lit. Everything looks natural. Too natural, if you ask me. Kinda looks like a PBS documentary at some points, and that's not to say it's a bad thing. Outside of that, I don't really want to talk about this film that much, considering I want more people to see this movie, and not because of spoilers. If you already know the Arthurian legend of Sir Gawain, there's nothing to be spoiled about this movie. It's more of just the experience of watching this movie. With all that said, that's why The Green Knight is one of my favorite movies of 2021. Of course, there's a lot of missing movies on here, like West Side Story, Licorice Pizza, and The King's Man. If you couldn't tell by my voice, I got sick. It prevented me from seeing these movies. And it sucked because I really wanted to see these movies, but I already delayed this video a lot. So I guess I'll make a standalone review for them. But with all that said, here's to 2022 being a better year than 2020 and 2021.